In the past 3.5 years, I've owned 3 electric cars, including this Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo you can see right behind me. And I have to say right out, I love electric cars. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you guys why. First off, electric cars are super easy to drive. You have one steering wheel, you have a gear selector where you can choose to go forwards or backwards or to park, and then you have 2 pedals, a go pedal and a stop pedal. So you don't have a transmission with several speeds, though in this car you actually do, which is a 2-speed transmission, but there are no gears. You can't, change gears, so there's no manual or automatic. All electric cars are pure automatic and makes it just so easy to drive. Refinement and overall just quietness and smoothness has to be one of the biggest plus points of an electric car, and this is inherent to an electric drivetrain because you have very few components. You have an electric motor, and then you have a transmission that is either 1-speed or 2-speed. Like in this Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo, it's a 2-speed automatic transmission, and you don't really use that second gear unless you're going very fast or the car is also trying to be efficient where it's using the highest gear possible. But it's just overall so quiet in a car like this. You have a little bit of sound from that electric motor, and some of that at low speed, if not all, is actually legislation where it has to have an audible sound on the outside because inherently the drivetrain here is just completely silent. So you don't have vibration, you don't have sound from a motor up front like a petrol, a diesel motor is just completely silent. But on top of that, you have the refinement. So the way everything just works together. So in an electric car, when you press the throttle pedal is sending an electrical signal to an ECU that then gives you the power you want, right? It's instant. But in a gas car, a petrol car, a modern car, let's say with an automatic transmission and a turbocharger, when you're pressing the throttle pedal, you're sending the same signal to an ECU that opens a throttle. That throttle then, sucks in air into the engine, and that amount of air is then measured by a mass flow sensor, which then sends a signal back to the ECU and tells the ECU that this much air has entered the combustion chamber. Can you apply fuel? And then it applies fuel to match that amount of air for your throttle position. And then it has to then spool up the turbos to push even more air. And then you have this, feedback loop. And then it has to tell the transmission to what to do. So there's so many components, so many things that are happening. And even though all of this is happening at lightning speed, you as a driver will, experience delay when you go on the throttle till something happens. None of that is necessary in an electric car. So the refinement level in an electric car is unrivaled. They're not even possible with internal combustion engines and transmissions. Packaging is also a huge upside of an electric car, and this will be different from car to car. This Taycan here is maybe a bad example, but even a bad example has better packaging than the best internal combustion engine cars, because in this car, even though the cabin is a little bit small, it's a little bit tight, there is a transmission tunnel, the trunk is of a decent size, you also do have underfloor storage, and you also have a frunk. No internal combustion engine car with an engine up front has a frunk. And this is because the battery pack is in the floor, and then you have the electric motors. You have one on the front axle in this car and then one on the rear axle. They're tiny. I mean, some of them are only about this big. So you don't have a lot of, drivetrain components to package into a car. And then you have, some of the best cars like, the Teslas, which have huge frunks, huge trunks, and a flat floor with a lot of cabin space. Then we have performance, and unless you've been living under a rock the past 10 years, this may be completely new to you, but electric cars are so fast. I mean, some of them are like stupid fast and faster than any internal combustion engine car has been able to do. The past 10 years, we've seen record after record, and this means that performance now, which was reserved for high-end sports cars, performance cars, and luxury cars in the past, is now available to the general public. You can go out and buy a Tesla less than $50,000 that will be as quicker than any Ferrari 15, 20 years ago, which is completely insane. Even this car, this is a base Porsche Taycan for Cross Turismo. Even this does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in like 5 seconds. And that is unheard of at this price point in an entry-level car just 10, 15 years ago. Then we have pricing, and you may be thinking, but Chris, electric cars are expensive and they can become really expensive if you go for the high-end stuff. And that is true and has been true for about a decade, but now in 2024, a lot of electric cars are very competitively priced, especially if you think about the tech, the interior space, and also the performance you're getting. This will be different from country to country, and especially here in Norway, it is very true. But if you look at the US, like a Tesla Model 3, the entry-level model has, 300 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 6.1 seconds, or 0 to 60 miles per hour in 6.1 seconds. And it's basically really reasonably and well spec'd for less than $40,000, and then dependent on the state you live in, you may get your tax credit, and you'll get like a $7,500 federal rebate. If you compare that to something like a Honda Civic Touring, which is like $32,000 out the door, the price difference isn't very big. And that, Honda only has 180 horsepower and can't compete on tech, can't compete when it comes to interior space. So even in the US, which is a very competitive market where cars have been cheap and are cheap, electric cars are still very good on price if you pick the correct one. This video is sponsored by Kempower. Kempower manufactures some of the most unique and best DC fast chargers on the market. Their satellite chargers offers flexibility and a user experience like no other. As a user, you don't have to think about what speed your car can charge at and then choose a charger that matches that speed. Kempower satellites with their load balancing system does all of this for you. All you have to do is connect and let Kempower do the rest. A huge thanks to Kempower for sponsoring this video. One of the most exciting things about electric cars, in my opinion, is how it has affected the car industry as a whole the past 10, 15 years. And of course, this was kickstarted by Tesla 10 years ago when they launched the Model S, which became, a mass market car here in Norway, where they sold tens of thousands across the globe and showed the car industry that an electric car can be a viable, proper, first, only car for a lot of people. And this forced other manufacturers to make new products, to be innovative, and today we have so many new electric car brands, we have so many new products that just a decade ago, people never thought would have been possible. Like this Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo that I'm driving, I bet you if you ask anybody 10 years ago, like, do you think a Porsche wagon, which is electric, is something that we're going to see in the future? I would have thought like, no, why would you ever think that would be a car that Porsche would make? But 10 years later, we're sitting here, and this car, the Taycan platform, is a direct result of the Tesla Model S. So last year, I actually had dinner with the lead engineer, the guy who was, responsible for the Porsche Taycan project, and he bought a Tesla Model S 10 years ago and was fascinated over that product. He went to the management and Porsche said, we have to make an electric car. So this car here is a direct descendant of the original Tesla Model S, and I just love that. That to me is amazing. Lastly, we have the environmental aspect of electric cars, which really isn't something I ever talk about here on the channel because it's not why I personally drive an electric car. But there's no hiding the fact that electric cars are better for the environment as a total. Yes, there are things about electric car and electric battery production that are bad, that people across the globe are working on better solutions for every day. Daily, there are improvements, and there is a lot of money, energy, resources being invested into improving that. So, all the bad things about that is going to be better, and within a few years, maybe a few decades, maybe 50 years, all of that is probably going to be eliminated almost completely. But the fact is, how our world works is that when we're working towards new technology, there are going to be bad things with that. That's true for everything. So there are going to be comments from people down below like, oh, batteries are bad. And in some aspects, batteries are bad. But electric cars as a total for the globe is better if we look at it, especially from just energy usage perspective. The most efficient internal combustion engine cars are at best 25% efficient. That means 75 to, in some cases, 80, maybe even 85% of the energy put into an internal combustion engine car is just wasted into noise, vibration, and heat. For every drop of petrol or diesel you put into your petrol or diesel car, most of that, 2/3, 3/4, are just wasted. On the flip side, when it comes to the energy put into an electric car, about 90 to 95% of that energy is being used to move the car forward. And this is why electric cars use so much more energy in winter, is because in internal combustion engine cars, you just have all of that heat you can recycle into the cabin. You don't have that heat waste in an electric car. So you actually have to use energy from the battery to power the heating system. That's why one of the main reasons why electric cars lose range and so much range in winter is because of that aspect, is because they're so efficient in their drivetrain. So if we, tomorrow everybody switched to electric cars, we stopped driving internal combustion engine cars, but we kept the oil industry and we burnt oil to power electric cars, we would save so much more energy. Like, we would only use about 1/4 of the energy we're using today. And I don't care how bad batteries are, because that's in the short term. In the long term, electric cars are so much more energy efficient, and there's no doubt that that's a lot better for the environment. So guys, that is a list of things why I love electric cars. So let me know down below, do you like electric cars or do you hate electric cars? And if you hate them, tell me why. And if you love them, tell me why. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.